You know, it's typically the weeks where there are no big games, the weeks where on paper it looks like it's going to be pretty lackluster. It's typically those weeks that end up being the craziest. And week 12, guys, was no exception. We entered this weekend with only two major ranked versus ranked matchups, both coming in the Pac-12. We thought this was going to be a pretty lackluster weekend, and then we saw 8 top 25 teams lose, 6 of those obviously to unranked opponents, and we nearly saw 3 more major upsets. Guys, we are here to break down what was a wild week 12. I know we're a little late on this. We had a lot to recap, love. So let's just go ahead and dive into it right here on the Gridiron Expert here on YouTube. We want to thank you guys for being here. Thank you for watching. Please continue to like, comment, subscribe, share the videos, and guys, just become a part of the GE Nation. We have a lot of content left for you guys. Just with Rivalry Week coming up, we have conference championships, we have bowl games, we have tons of content here on the channel, tons of content on our website as well over on thegridironexpert.com, where we are killing it this season with our expert picks. 6-4 on our expert picks this week brings our total to 76-47 on the year, hitting 61.8% of our bets, nearly 62%, better than over 80% of the national analysts and handicappers in the country. And that price, one of the lowest in the entire country. Take advantage of it, guys. A full 365-day subscription gets you tons of college picks, tons of NFL picks, 62% here, practically 81% on the money line, 385 and 91. We will crack 400 wins after next week to conclude the regular season. Pretty dang good year for us here at the Gridiron Expert, 78.9 in week 12, 30-8 on the money line. So what a week, what a year. We want you to take advantage of that again over on thegridironexpert.com. So let's dive into these games. We have a lot just to kind of touch on here. Well, the first one we want to briefly touch on is UCF, all right? Number 20, UCF loses to Navy. A week after going on the road and taking down Tulane, UCF comes home to the bounce house and loses 17-14 to a bad Navy team who didn't complete a single pass. Now, that's not necessarily a shock. Navy runs the triple option, but Navy didn't complete a single pass. UCF committed 2 costly turnovers, lost by 3 to a bad midshipman team. And at one point, coming into this week, UCF looked like the heavy favorite to make a New Year's Six bowl game as the best group of 5 team. Now they have practically taken themselves out of consideration for that. Easily could come down to Tulane or Cincinnati, who conveniently play in week 13 coming up this Saturday. So, I mean, crazy stuff, guys, in college football, but UCF losing to Navy is unbelievable. Unbelievable. And the New Year's Six race for the group of 5 teams just got a lot more interesting. You take a look, guys, at the top 4 teams in the country. The top 4 teams in the country, Georgia, Ohio State, Michigan, and TCU, none of them look good. None of them look like world beaters, and yet they're not going to change in the rankings because they all managed to win. Georgia took down Kentucky 16-6, only a 10-point victory over the Wildcats. Kentucky definitely committing a lot of costly mistakes, had a missed field goal in there, a lot of missed opportunities. Georgia not on their A game going on the road. You can't say they were really looking ahead to Georgia Tech because they're not much of anything, although we're going to get to them in a second. Georgia beats Kentucky by 10. Ohio State only beat Maryland 43-30. Keep in mind, though, that game was 36-30 late in the game. Ohio State literally scored a touchdown as time expired to make that game look a little bit better for them than it really was. The Terrapins gave Ohio State everything they could handle. We thought that was a possibility. We've seen Maryland give Ohio State tests in the past because Ohio State's kind of looking forward to Michigan, but the Buckeyes simply did not look good. Their defense did not look good, giving up 318 passing yards to Talia Tagovailoa and that Terrapins offense. Now, number 1 survives. Number 2 survives. Number 3, Michigan, survived Illinois 19-17. The Wolverines trailed the Fighting Illini 17-10 in the fourth quarter. The first time Michigan was trailing in the fourth quarter this season. And the Wolverines didn't even score a touchdown in the fourth quarter, and they managed to win. Jake Moody was the MVP of that game against Illinois. He had 3 field goals in the fourth quarter, including the game winner from 35 yards out with 9 seconds left. Give credit to Illinois and Brett Bielema for giving Michigan all they could handle at the Big House in Ann Arbor. Illinois is a good team, guys. They're a solid team. 7-win team right now, still in the hunt for a Big Ten West championship, although somehow, some way, Iowa might still win that division. Who would have thought? But Illinois gave them all they could handle, still fell 19-17. Michigan did not look great in that game. But they survived to set up the huge undefeated showdown next weekend in the game against Ohio State. So, I mean, for those of you that are casual fans, you were probably rooting for Ohio State and Michigan just so we had that matchup to watch. The stakes being high, both undefeated, but Michigan didn't look good. Ohio State didn't look good. TCU, once again, surviving against what many would say was an inferior opponent. I mean, TCU is getting by the skin of their teeth, guys. They barely got by against Kansas, barely got by against Oklahoma State, barely got by this week against Baylor, beating Baylor 29-28. The Horned Frogs trailed 28-26 with under 2 minutes left, but their defense came through clutch. Defense that was phenomenal last week at Texas came through clutch against Baylor, got the stop they needed, and then Sonny Dykes choosing with about 20 seconds left to run another play with no timeouts, rush the field goal unit out there. The clock is ticking. They didn't have time to ease into that kick, and TCU drilled it. Drilled the 40-yard field goal as time expired to crush Baylor. You know, it was one of those things where this is a very intense rivalry. Last year, TCU ended Baylor's college football playoff hopes. The Bears nearly did the same to TCU this time around, but the Horned Frogs seem to be the heart attack frogs. They seem to be finding a way to, and that's the most important thing, they find ways to win. The Horned Frogs are 11-0. They play a poor Iowa State team this upcoming week. They win that. Obviously, they've already clinched their spot in the Big 12 championship, but they win that, and they are in the college football playoff. The Big 12 championship going to be tough. Whether they play Texas, whether they play Kansas State remains to be seen. But this is a good TCU team, guys, that, again, is finding ways to win games. Ultimately, that's the most important thing. But they still didn't look great. So 1, 2, 3, 4, none of them looked great. And then number 5 lost. We're going to get back to Georgia Tech in a second, but then number 5 lost. So your top 4 teams getting by the skin of their teeth, didn't look all that great. And then number 5, Tennessee, who was in a perfect position to make the college football playoff without even having to play in a conference championship game, lost on the road to South Carolina. And I just want to say that back in the preseason, we did pick this game. We did pick South Carolina to beat Tennessee. And once again, they called us a madman, and we were right. You want to win money like that? You want to hammer the money line on South Carolina like we did? Expert picks down in the description below. South Carolina destroyed number 5 Tennessee 63-38. Spencer Rattler, up and down career, up and down season at South Carolina, 438 yards and 6 touchdowns against Tennessee. Tennessee team that was able to beat Alabama. A Tennessee team that crushed LSU 63-38. South Carolina guys never trailed in this game. They struck first and they never looked back. The Gamecocks had 606 yards of offense. And that game, guys, ruined Tennessee's playoff hopes. The Volunteers are done. They are out. 2 losses. They're not winning the division. They're not going to the SEC championship. They had their chance, and they blew it. They just blew it. And before anybody gets to the comments and goes, well, that's because Hendon Hooker got hurt. No, it was not. He did not get hurt until later in that game. Later in the game, Tennessee's defense was atrocious. South Carolina was able to answer them. Maybe in the fourth quarter, it could have been closer. South Carolina, after the Hendon Hooker injury, did rattle off 21 straight points to get to a 63-31 win to really blow it open. It was only 42-31 entering the fourth quarter. But Hendon Hooker's injury was not the reason that Tennessee lost this game. The defense was more so the problem. Give credit to Shane Beamer. Give credit to the Gamecocks. They're 7-4. They got a game coming up against Clemson. They could spoil their playoff hopes too. They are playing good Beamer ball in Columbia. By far the biggest upset of the day, the biggest shocker of the day. A Tennessee team that offensively looked unstoppable was stopped in Columbia, South Carolina. A huge signature win for Shane Beamer and arguably the biggest upset of the day, one of the biggest upsets of the season. Real quick, do want to give a shout out to Georgia Tech. Georgia Tech upset number 13, North Carolina, 21-17. North Carolina's already clinched a spot in the ACC championship game, guys. They're in. They're going to play Clemson for the ACC title. But you thought we'd get to see a top 10 showdown in the ACC championship, and the Tar Heels blew it. They were up 17-0 against a Georgia Tech team that has an interim head coach that had their third-string quarterback in Zach Gibson, and they blew it. 17-0 lead, lost 21-17. Third-string quarterback Zach Gibson came in, led the Yellow Jackets to a victory. And let's give credit to Brent Key, the interim head coach at Georgia Tech, filling in for Jeff Collins, who to me is making a very good case for himself to be the next head coach at Georgia Tech. Jeff Collins, during his time with the Yellow Jackets, had 1 win over a top 25 team. Brent Key is 4-3 during the 7 games that he served as interim. 2 of those 4 wins are against top 25 teams in Pittsburgh and now North Carolina. You can't make this stuff up, guys. You just can't make this stuff up. North Carolina, guys, they blew it. And honestly, not only are they the biggest loser here, but Clemson is a huge loser here, as the Tigers are still maybe fighting for a playoff spot, maybe still in the mix, especially if chaos unfolds above them, like if TCU were to lose, if USC were to lose. Obviously, Ohio State or Michigan, one of them is going to lose. Clemson is not completely out of the playoff race yet, but not getting to face a potential top 10 North Carolina team is going to hurt them in the long run. They have Georgia Tech to thank for that. Can't make this stuff up, guys. Another huge upset that probably was not talked about nearly as much as the Tennessee one. You move on to the Pac-12, though, guys. The team that maybe benefited the most from that Tennessee loss, from that South Carolina win, was USC, who to me made a statement by beating number 16 UCLA 48-45, arguably the best game of the weekend. USC won that game 48-45, came back down 14-0 early. They didn't take the lead until about midway through the third quarter, but yet were able to chip away, and get this win and keep their playoff hopes alive. Guys, there's a very good chance that if USC wins out, that would include a win over Notre Dame in the season finale, a ranked hot Notre Dame team, and then obviously a win in the Pac-12 championship, most likely against Oregon, that this USC team in year 1 under Lincoln Riley could make the college football playoff. They benefited the most from that Tennessee loss. Caleb Williams, guys, 470 yards, 2 touchdowns. Jordan Addison, 178 yards, 1 touchdown. Dorian Thompson-Robinson for UCLA had 3 interceptions. The Bruins committed 4 turnovers total, resulted in 10 USC points. Pretty big when you only lose by 3. The last costly interception came with 1:26 left at the UCLA 43-yard line. Dorian Thompson-Robinson threw his 3rd of the day, and USC sealed the win at the Rose Bowl. So USC keeps their playoff hopes alive. UCLA, still a very good season for them, but just marred by close loss after close loss after close loss. And obviously that upset against Arizona, you can't help what could have been had they won that and then been able to pull off this win against USC. Great game, though, in the battle for LA, and the Trojans are fighting for the college football playoff. And finally, guys, in the Pac-12, the other ranked versus ranked matchup we were talking about, number 12 Oregon beats number 10 Utah 20-17. Obviously, Oregon keeps their Pac-12 title hopes alive. Playoff is out of the question. Obviously, that would still be in the mix had they not been upset the week prior to Washington. But Oregon still has a shot to make the Pac-12 championship, to ruin USC's hopes. Give credit to the Oregon defense, guys, for coming through clutch. Give them credit. You know, the Ducks were leading 17-3. They allowed the Utes to crawl back into it, but the Ducks forced 3 Cam Rising interceptions that turned into 7 crucial Oregon points. 3 interceptions turned it into a touchdown. Each team did have 3 turnovers total. It was a pretty sloppy game overall from the Ducks and the Utes, but I give more credit right now to the Oregon defense. It was them that came through clutch, and obviously being able to get Utah off the field. They held Utah to a field goal attempt that they missed. Utah had a turnover on downs at the Oregon 11, a turnover on down at the Oregon 26, and a turnover on down at the 50-yard line with 1:57 that ultimately sealed the Oregon victory. Oregon's defense came through clutch a week after selling against Washington, ultimately costing them the game there. The Utes ultimately went 1 for 4 on 4th down, guys, and that was the difference in this game. Oregon wins by 3. That missed field goal and inability to convert in the red zone is what cost Utah the game. So the team that many thought was the Pac-12 favorite in Utah, who won the conference last year, is done and now has 3 losses. Can't make this stuff up. Beauty of college football, guys. Just the beauty of college football. And you know, the best thing about college football, guys, is we are heading into rivalry week. And as we always say, when you get to these type of games, you assume nothing. You assume nothing. You get rid of records, you get rid of history, and you just focus on the game. Anything can happen in rivalry week. It's why you play the game, and things are going to get crazy in week 13. We've got a great weekend of college football, guys, coming up. We've got great picks coming your way over on the website. We've got great content coming your way. 4 huge ranked versus ranked matchups. The playoff race heating up. Conference title race is heating up. And we're going to here be breaking it down every step of the way. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching us here at the Gridiron Expert on YouTube. Make sure to continue to like, comment, subscribe, share our videos. And, of course, check out everything down in the description below, including those expert picks over on thegridironexpert.com. Again, right down there in the description. Go sign up, become a part of our GE Nation. And once again, guys, as always, thank you so much for watching. And we'll see you next time right here on the Gridiron Expert.
Yeah.